BTS, one of the best-selling artists in South Korea, surpassing 50 million physical album sales across their discography. The first K-pop act to ever receive a Grammy Award nomination, and the first Asian group to win a top prize at an American Music Awards show. They even ended Justin Bieber's 6-year winning streak, marking the turning point for K-pop in the American mainstream. But before all the fame, money, and achievements, this group of artists had to go through struggles, humiliation, and even a fight for mere survival in an industry that's seemingly designed to keep them out. This is a story about defying the odds and how a small-time agency and struggling rookies became one of the most influential K-pop groups, not just in Korea, but in the world. In 2013, the K-pop industry was relatively a closed kingdom. It was ruled by corporate giants with massive capital that essentially controlled the broadcast networks and the public's attention. If you didn't debut under them, you were known as a nugu group. It technically means who, but it was slang for calling your group a nobody. And then there was Big Hit Entertainment, a company so small they didn't even own their own building. They were operating on a razor-thin budget and practically on the verge of bankruptcy. So when they formed BTS, nobody could have expected them to become this massive. And I think that's what makes their origin story so fascinating. Because Big Hit wasn't trying to manufacture a standard boy group. They originally just wanted to build a gritty hip-hop crew. Instead, the entire lineup came together through a mix of pure luck, good instincts, and deeply unconventional scouting. It all started in May 2010 with Kim Namjoon, or better known as RM. And he wasn't some groomed idol trainee, he was an underground rapper. A 15-year-old with a fiercely analytical mind and sharp lyricism. At the time, they didn't even have a dorm or a trainee system set up yet. But they knew they had their anchor and they decided to build the entire group around him. Then we have Suga. He originally just wanted a job as a music producer, but chose an unconventional way to get there, entering Big Hit's rap battle. Instead of just rapping over the beat they gave him, which happened to be an old RM track, Suga completely rearranged it. He placed second in the tournament, but his producing skills were simply too good to ignore, so he was hired anyway. The funny part is, he never actually wanted to be in a boy idol group. Big Hit's CEO basically tricked him into joining the lineup by telling him he wouldn't have to dance. But as we now know, BTS has some of the most intense choreography in the world of K-pop. Then there was J-Hope. He was already an established hip-hop dancer in his hometown, having won a national competition back in 2008. He actually tried out for JYP Entertainment, one of the big three giants, but he didn't make the cut. Big Hit, however, saw it differently. They brought him in as the third member, completing the original underground hip-hop trio with RM and Suga. Jungkook's casting is kind of crazy. When he was about 13, he auditioned for the third season of the popular South Korean talent show, Superstar K. He got eliminated, but his raw talent caught the attention of basically everyone. He received offers from 7 different companies, including massive industry giants like JYP, and he could have walked into any of those wealthy, established agencies. Instead, he turned them all down, just because he thought RM was cool. And with that one simple choice, Big Hit secured BTS's prodigy, a main vocalist who could seamlessly double as a dancer and a rapper. Jin, on the other hand, was a completely different kind of anomaly. Unlike the others, he had absolutely no background in music. He was just a college student studying acting. In a sheer stroke of luck, a casting director spotted him on the street and recruited him purely for his ridiculous good looks. The irony is, SM Entertainment, one of the industry giants, actually tried to scout him years earlier, but he ran away because he thought it was a scam. Big Hit only managed to sign him by telling him that being an idol would eventually lead to acting. He had to learn to sing and dance completely from scratch. But he worked twice as hard behind the scenes to prove he was more than just a pretty face, ultimately becoming the visual center for the group. V's story, on the other hand, is just pure charm. He was a farm boy from Daegu who only showed up to a big hit audition to support his friend. But a casting director spotted him, saw something incredibly special, and practically begged him to try out. And out of everyone in Daegu that day, V was the only person to pass, and hilariously, just like Jin, he thought it was a scam. He ultimately joined, and Big Hit realized they had found such an undeniable star that they kept him heavily guarded as their secret weapon, giving BTS an incredibly unique stylistic performer they didn't even know they needed. And finally, Jimin. He was a star student in Busan, entering an elite arts high school at the very top of his class for modern dance. He was the only person out of thousands to pass his local Big Hit audition. But despite that, he was almost cut from the BTS lineup multiple times because the company simply didn't know what to do with him. I mean, Jimin had a more ballet style and modern dance background. But desperate to survive in the industry, Jimin pushed himself to the absolute limit. He sat in the corner of the other members' vocal lessons just to take notes, and slept only 2.5 hours a night on a mattress in the practice room. Through sheer, terrifying willpower, he forced his way into the lineup, forging himself into the group's final main dancer and lead vocalist. So there they were. An underground rapper, a tricked producer, a rejected street dancer, a loyal prodigy, an acting student, an accidental farm boy, and a desperate modern dancer. They weren't polished, and they didn't have industry connections or massive budgets behind them. But they had each other, and they were ready to take on the world. But unfortunately, proving that to the world was going to cost them everything they had. Surviving the K-pop industry is hard enough. But if you're operating on a thin budget, it makes debuting a little more difficult. Forget the luxury training facilities or the pristine idol apartments. The reality is, during their early days, all 7 guys were shoved into a small dorm with a single, cramped bedroom. They shared one bathroom and slept in bunk beds so tightly packed you could barely even walk between them. Most of the time, the youngest member, Jungkook, would wait until all the older guys fell asleep just so he could take a shower in peace. And because money is pretty tight, the members often had to fend for themselves. Suga, for example, had to take on a part-time job as a delivery driver just to pay for his food and transport. He was even hit by a car while making a delivery, severely injuring his shoulder. And because he was terrified that Big Hit would cut him from the debut lineup, he hid the injury, enduring the pain during their dance practices in secret. Honestly, the amount of stress they were under was just suffocating. The pressure became so heavy that at one point, J-Hope actually broke down and left the group, only returning because RM and the younger members practically begged him to stay. But all of that was only part of the battle. The truth is, just getting anyone to pay attention to them was a real struggle. Because Big Hit lacked industry power, they were constantly getting pushed aside for the bigger groups. In fact, they only secured their very first debut stage because another act canceled at the last minute. And it didn't get better from there. They would frequently spend hours getting ready for a show, only to have their performance either significantly shortened or completely cut from the broadcast because a more established group needed the airtime. Heck, they weren't even given waiting rooms. Instead, they had to get dressed and do their makeup in the hallways right in front of the public bathrooms. And when they did get on camera, they still couldn't catch a break. Just look at the infamous hamburger incident. During a live broadcast, Jungkook happily bought hamburgers for the older TV host with his own money. But instead of thanking him, one of the hosts called it leftovers and rudely rejected the food, leaving him visibly uncomfortable on national television. And they couldn't even find a safe haven in their own roots. During a live hip-hop panel with fellow underground rappers, RM and Suga had to sit there while a rapper named Be Free picked them apart. He criticized them for their idol image, for wearing makeup on stage, took aim at their music, essentially gatekeeping what hip-hop was supposed to be and calling them sellouts. At this point, it would have been easier to just cave in, to drop the hip-hop identity and conform to what the industry wanted them to be. But instead of letting it break them, they used all of it as fuel. So, they put their heads down and went to work. Working with a limited budget meant corners had to be cut, and they had to get creative. While other groups were shooting music videos in rented studios with professional crews, BTS was pulling in their own staff as extras just to fill the shot. For their first full studio album, they even recorded in a makeshift studio inside a garage in Los Angeles. And to get an audience for their LA showcase, they literally walked up and down Hollywood Boulevard, handing out flyers to random strangers on the street. They were so exhausted during this era that members would sneak off to the bathroom just to steal a few minutes of sleep. But somehow, through all of that, they kept going. While they were still fighting for scraps of airtime on traditional TV broadcasts, they realized they needed another way to be seen. They began utilizing YouTube and Twitter in a way no other K-pop group was doing at the time. They started uploading their own vlogs and hundreds of behind-the-scenes videos called Bangtan Bombs. But instead of showing a carefully polished idol image, they showed a more candid, behind-the-scenes look at their everyday lives. And rather than letting the company filter their messages, the members interacted directly with fans on Twitter. It allowed fans to see the mundane, relatable, and mischievous side of their personalities. It was completely unconventional, but this unfiltered, constant stream of content is exactly what built the fiercely loyal fandom known as ARMY. But having a loyal fan base was only half the battle. To truly break through the mainstream, they needed a musical breakthrough. So in 2015, they made a massive, deliberate shift. They stepped away from the purely aggressive, tough hip-hop image of their early days. Instead, they released the first entry in what would become a trilogy of albums, The Most Beautiful Moment in Life. A concept designed to express the dual nature of youth, its radiant beauty and its crushing anxiety. The lead single, I Need You, abandoned the overt posturing for a raw exploration of heartbreak and desperation. Their music videos introduced a cinematic storyline where the members navigated trauma, loss, and the painful transition into adulthood. It allowed fans to deeply connect with their emotional struggles, and it connected on a massive scale. On May 5th, 2015, I Need You earned BTS their very first music show win, and it didn't stop there. Their follow-up track, Dope, made them the first K-pop group outside the major agencies to surpass 100 million views on YouTube. Shortly after, they entered the US Billboard 200 for the very first time. They were no longer just a small-time group fighting for airtime and doing their makeup in a hallway. They were now disrupting the very industry that once seemed to only have seats for the giant agencies. In May 2015, BTS's physical album sales skyrocketed, briefly outselling even Big Bang, one of the most legendary groups in the industry. But it wasn't all roses for them, because disrupting an industry also comes with an intense level of scrutiny. Instead of celebrating their breakthrough, the members found themselves having to defend their legitimacy. They were accused of sajagi, the practice of a company buying its own albums in bulk to artificially inflate the charts. But the thing is, Big Hit at this point didn't even have enough money to try something like that, even if they wanted to. And that's not even the end of it. They were accused of plagiarism for incredibly mundane concepts like hair colors, standing in green fields, filming in tunnels, or wearing school uniforms. This happened so often that hashtags related to BTS and plagiarism would trend seemingly after every major milestone just to dampen their success. In 2016, a coalition of anti-fans launched a coordinated sabotage effort called the Breakwings Project, specifically designed to ruin their Wings album comeback. At one point, petitions from rival fan bases even flooded the Korean government's Blue House, demanding an awards show be abolished simply because BTS had won. Heck, cruel targeted campaigns were even launched against individual members, calling people like J-Hope ugly and untalented, and demanding he be kicked out of the group entirely. And if that wasn't enough, some members received actual death threats. Serious enough that a 2015 New York fan meeting was canceled and the concert cut short. But here's the thing. ARMY weren't just fans cheering from the sidelines. Every time a hate hashtag trended, ARMY flooded it with love and their support. Every time an accusation surfaced, they showed up with receipts. And every time the noise got too loud, they made sure BTS could still hear them. There's a reason BTS has always been so unusually open about how much their fans mean to them. Because during the years when the industry felt entirely against them, when the challenges were relentless, ARMY was the only constant. They were the ones who bought the albums when nobody else would. The ones who showed up and refused to let the narrative be written by the people who wanted BTS to fail. Today, BTS stands as one of the best-selling group in South Korean history, with a string of Billboard Hot 100 chart toppers, Grammy nominations, and a legacy that will echo for decades. They went from a rookie group handing out flyers on Hollywood Boulevard to selling out the massive Rose Bowl Stadium in the exact same city. From pulling in their own staff to act as extras, to releasing music videos that shattered global YouTube records in a matter of minutes. The very same group who used to do their makeup in the halls because they couldn't get a waiting room, were now speaking to the world at the United Nations. And Big Hit Entertainment, the company that once couldn't even afford its own building, is now HYBE. They grew into a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse, rivaling the very giants who once dwarfed them, and cementing their place at the very top of an industry that once had no room for them. But beyond the billions and the broken records, their story is ultimately one of survival. BTS didn't get here because the doors magically opened for them. They got here because they kept knocking, even when the doors were slammed right in their faces. And long after everyone else would have walked away. You know, hard work doesn't always open doors. It doesn't even come with a timeline, a guarantee, or a promise that it will all make sense in the end. But one thing is for sure. The person who comes out the other side of it is never quite the same as the one who started it. And maybe that's what changes you from a nobody into exactly who you were always meant to be.